Hi, I'm Alistair, and in this video I'm going to show you a simple method to make a standalone connection between two regular landline telephones with no phone network, no internet and no modifications to the phones themselves. So I can lift this handset and hear a dial tone. If I dial the number which I've assigned to the other phone, it will ring and I can answer it, and now they're connected just like a normal phone call. Now you can also make it so that one phone automatically dials the other as soon as the handset is lifted, like an intercom. But unlike basic telephone intercom circuits you might have seen, where the microphone of each handset is directly wired to the speaker of the other, these still behave like telephones. You get a dial tone, the phone rings, and the call is only connected when the receiving handset picks up, even though nothing here uses the public telephone network. Now, you can use any regular landline phones to do this, and you don't need to modify them in any way. You don't need to write any code or use an Arduino or anything like that. And you can use standard telephone extension cable to separate them by anything up to about 1 kilometre. So you could use this method to make a telephone ring on stage in a theatre, to give hints to players in an escape room, or connect a shop floor in a stock room, or to create an intercom to the shed at the bottom of your garden. And to make this work, you only need one piece of hardware, which costs about £35. This is an analog telephone adapter, or ATA. And these are normally used to connect a telephone handset like this to an IP telephony network so that it can make calls over the internet. And I've used one of these before in a project with a Raspberry Pi acting as a PBX server, basically a private telephone exchange. And that lets you do all sorts of exciting things like dial any number of telephones, navigate telephone trees, automatically trigger incoming and outgoing calls via a sensor, or automate things. What I'm about to show you here is much simpler than that, because we're not going to join any network at all, not even a private PBX. Instead, I'm just going to take advantage of the fact that this adapter has two FXS phone ports on the back of it. Now, normally these ports are designed to let you connect two handsets to the same IP telephone network, but I'm just going to use it to connect them to each other. Now, it's worth mentioning that not every ATA can do this. Even if they have two FXS ports, some don't allow you to create internal calls between them. This is a Grandstream HT-802 model, which definitely works. And I've been told that this method works with other Grandstream devices as well. And they're cheap and easy to buy on Amazon or eBay or wherever. Now, to configure the adapter to work like this, we need to go to its setup menu and make some changes. And you do that via a web browser. So I'm going to connect it to my router via the Ethernet port here. And this is the only time it needs to be connected to your network. Once you've made the configuration changes I'm about to show you, you can disconnect that again and it will run completely standalone. Now, to access the web interface on the device, we need to know what its IP address is. And one way to do that is to pick up a handset that's connected to either of the ports, and you dial *****.
Enter a menu option.
And then we select a menu option. If we dial 02, the little robot inside will read out the IP address. 192.168.1.200. And now we can go to that IP address in a web browser, and you'll get to a login page here. So the first time you log in, you'll probably have to set a new password for the admin account. I've already done that, so I'm just going to log in. And then you'll get to the web menu. Now, there are a load of settings and values here, but don't be scared off, because the vast majority of these you can safely ignore. We're going to start by looking at the FXS port 1 menu option. And if we scroll down this page a little way, we'll find a value here that says local SIP port 5060. Now you can think of the SIP port as the extension number for that phone line. If we go back up to the top and look at FXS port 2, we'll see that that one has been assigned a SIP port of 5062 instead. So at this point we can already call either phone from another device on the network by specifying first the adapter's IP address and then the appropriate SIP port of either of those two lines. But that relies on the adapter being on a network, and we want this to work completely offline. Since we're only calling from one port of the adapter to the other, we don't actually need to use this real network IP address at all. Instead, we can use the local loopback address 127.0.0.1, which basically just refers to this device itself. And that way the call never leaves the adapter. So right now we could dial 127.0.0.1 and then port 5060 and it would call line 1. Or we could dial 127.0.0.1 5062 to call line 2. But typing an IP address and a port number on a phone keypad is kind of tricky. So instead we'll define a short alias number. So if you scroll a little bit further down the page, you'll get to a section that says dial plan. So the dial plan defines what numbers are allowed to be dialed from this handset. Now yours might look a little bit different depending on the model of ATA or the country you're in, but we can add a new entry into that dial plan that looks like this. And then we'll use a pipe separator at the end just to keep the existing dial plan. So what this says is that when someone dials the number 102 on this handset, we're going to substitute it for this longer number instead. The *47 at the beginning tells the adapter that what follows should be treated as an IP address. And then we've got the 127.0.0.1 with the asterisks in place of the dots. And then we have another asterisk followed by 5062, which is the SIP port associated with line 2. You don't really need to understand the whole of the syntax here. The important thing is that dialing 102 from the first handset now dials the other handset. And you could replace this value here with any other phone number you like, just a single digit. You can add multiple substitutions if you want. So we could add another one here where dialing whatever 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 would also dial the other handset. You just need to separate each entry with a pipe character like this. So once we've done that, we can scroll down to the bottom of this page, and all the way at the bottom we can click Update. Now we can go to the FX Port 2 page, and if we wanted to, we could make a matching entry in the dial plan for this port so that it dialed back to the first one using 5060 rather than 5062. But I mentioned earlier that you can make one phone automatically dial the other one when it's lifted off the hook. And if you wanted to do that instead, we can scroll up a little bit further up the page, and we've got a value here that says off-hook auto dial, the user ID or extension to dial automatically when off the hook. So what we can insert in this box here uses exactly the same format as we did when we were entering the dial plan. We start with *47 to say that we're doing a direct IP dial. Then we do 127.0.0.1, which is the local IP address. And this time we're going to be calling port 5060, which is the SIP port associated with line 1. And now, as soon as the second handset is lifted, it will automatically call the first line. So once again, let's go down to the bottom and click Update to save those changes. Now there's one more important change to make, and you're going to find that in the basic settings page. So by default, the adapter tries to get an address assigned to it using DHCP. But because we're going to be using this offline, it will never find a DHCP server to assign that address. And even though we're only making local calls that never leave the device, this can actually stop it from working properly. So the solution is very simple. We simply tell it to use a static IP address instead. And you can enter pretty much any IP value you want here, any valid IP address, because we're never actually going to connect to the adapter using it again. This just keeps it happy and stops it searching for a network. Once again, we go down and click Update to save the changes. And that is all the essential configuration you have to make. There are a few other settings you can tweak if you want. One interesting section to look at is the ringtones. So if we scroll back down on the FXS port 1 page again, we'll see a section here. Now, you might be aware that different countries use different patterns, different cadences for ringtones, dial tones, busy tones, and things like that. And in this section, you can adjust the timing and the cadence of all of those settings to make it sound exactly like the phone handset would in a particular region. But you can just, leave these alone if you're happy with the default values. Once you've made all of the changes you want to make, so you've assigned either your dial plan settings, or if you want to make the auto dial when it's off hook, once you've set a static IP address, you can then click the apply button. That will reset the device now with those new settings. And once you've done that, you can disconnect the adapter from your network entirely. All you need to do now is power it in via USB, plug in your 2 phone handsets into the FXS ports, and it's ready to use anywhere. So that's how you can create your own tiny private telephone exchange with just 2 handsets and no server. And even though it lacks the features of a proper PBX, I still think there's lots of potential uses for it. So I hope you found this information helpful. If you'd like to see more playful technology projects, please do look at the other videos in this channel, or check out my Patreon, which I'll link in the description below. I also have a Discord server where people share information and offer advice about amazing creative technology projects they're building all over the world. Otherwise, I just want to say thank you all very much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Okay, cheers, bye.